you've caught me putting together a very early and primitive camera. It's known as a pinhole camera basically because there is a pinhole stuck in the front here. Now David Hockney, a famous British artist, reckons that around about 1430 or thereabouts, with people like Caravaggio, that they discovered, these artists, things like the camera obscura and the pinhole camera could actually improve their paintings. And he reckons there was this kind of major jump forward as artists learned to trace images that came through a window and were bounced off a mirror. And he calls this the optics period, when optical assisted paintings were discovered. And so this represents probably the earliest type of camera, sort of 700 years, something like that. Anyway, the way it's made is with a tube here. We have a piece of tin at the front into which we can hammer a tiny little pinhole, and then we have a viewing screen tucked away down there. And I've been experimenting with this, and I've discovered that if you also line the tube with black like this, you get a really quite impressive image, which is upside down. Now things developed, and the artists pretty soon learned that if they put a lens at some point in the light beam, it made the image much sharper and brighter, funnily enough, and it meant that their artwork could kind of leap on. But Hockney reckons this was the basis behind how artists suddenly discovered things like perspective. And he calls it the kind of refined period, or the optics period of painting, hyperrealism and things like this. And artists only really moved away from using optics for their painting and so forth around about the 1870s, when chemistry related photography started to take off, and therefore you could get prints and things like this, the kinds of stuff that we see here that would be printed out on a piece of paper, which was way more real than the artists themselves could create. And so then you had things like Impressionism and Expressionism and all that kind of stuff. Surrealism and Cubism started to take off because they couldn't really compete in terms of the reality stakes with the likes of chemistry-based photography and the super lenses that they have. So making yourself a really basic camera is a fairly straightforward process. I'll show you an image in a minute when we go out into the garden of what you can see down the bottom of that tube there. I'll show you the viewing screen while we're at it. There's a viewing screen and there's the little pinhole. And this tube greatly assists the brightness of the image, funnily enough, as you'll see when I put the camera into this in a moment. And I suppose by doing that I'm creating a digital pinhole camera. Now my plan is to take the body cap off a Canon camera, a digital SLR, one of the ones where you can remove the lens. Could be a Nikon, could be anything. But where you have this dust cap that goes over the front, and they're usually black, made of plastic. And if we create a pinhole in the plastic body cap of a digital camera, it's been shown that you can create a digital pinhole camera, and you can take real photographs using a technology that is the best part of 700 years old. And so you can combine 7-year-old, 100-year-old technology here with the modern wonders of the digital age. So we're going to go out into the garden in a minute and we'll have a look around through the pinhole camera. Okay, so we were talking about doing a digital pinhole camera. Here is a conventional digital SLR with its lens attached, and here we can take the lens off That's the thing that separates a digital SLR from a compact SLR or one of the cameras that you have on your mobile phone and that kind of thing. It means that you get much more creative flexibility. Now when the lens is off, it has a body cap attached to it. And the plan is to create a digital pinhole camera by drilling a very small hole through the centre of this, which I have already done, putting it on here instead of the lens, so this becomes like the cheapest lens on the planet, putting it on instead of this, and then pointing it at that building over there in this glorious sunshine to take a digital photograph. Now there's going to be an element of experimentation about this, because with the internal metering systems that these cameras have, they relate electronically to the lens that's fitted to the camera, and obviously there's no electronics in this. So there's going to have to be a little bit of ducking and diving. So you'll have the camera set on manual, and you'll also have my favourite accessory, the tripod, in order to keep the camera still. Now we're going to be going for quite long exposures, and any of you who are familiar with the lenses know that this one goes down to f32, and that's still quite a fair sized hole for the light to come through. This is probably about 30 or 40 times smaller, so clearly the f number is going to be somewhere up in the couple of hundreds. So this thing is going to have the shutter locked open for some time. So I'm going to put the setting using the manual controls here to bulb, which basically means that we lock the shutter open as long as I leave my finger on the button. And that's what we're going to do in order to take some of these photographs. As I say, it's going to look a bit hit and miss, but here we go. We take the lens off, and we put the lens body cap in. It's in position. Swivel ourselves round towards that building, and we're sort of ready now to do a digital pinhole photograph. So let me just get ourselves set up. I'll put this down here nice and safe. Don't want to get dust into it. And let's see what's going on. Here we go. Now that's come out rather nicely, so I'll just show you that. There's the half a second. This is partly because we've got a fast ISO. If I change the ISO to improve the quality, we can go from 800 to 100. We'll just set that. The ISO, if you go for a slow ISO, you get a better quality photograph. So seeing as how we've got no lens, we might as well give this a little bit of help and see if we can get a bit of quality going on. So let's take another photo. And this time that's come out drastically darker because effectively we've shut the thing down by 4 stops. So I'm going to have to open the time up again, and I'm going to go for a whole minute. So now that's looking quite good. That's looking quite good. We've got, see the picture here, you can see the car parked in front of the building and the building itself. I'm just going to move the tripod around so that you can see over my shoulder to get some more detail on what I'm photographing. So let's do that now. Okay, so what we're doing is we're just going to change the setting, and I've got this picture here so that you can see what's going on. We've changed the ISO to 100, which gives us a better quality image, and we're just going to take some photographs of this scene here, which is nicely illuminated. At the moment I have the camera set on a second, so if I take the photograph, you'll see the image has come up and it's a little bit on the dark side. So let's get the menu and let's change that to, I think we'll go maybe 2 seconds, double it and see what happens. Okay, again, it's come out quite well. Could go a bit brighter still, so let's get the menu up and let's give it 3 and a bit seconds, shall we? See what happens now. Okay, so that's now acceptably bright and it's sort of acceptably sharp. The great thing about this is that if there's anybody walking in front of the camera or anything like that, by having such a slow shutter speed, they don't actually appear on the final image. This makes life easy for doing scenes around towns and things like that. So always go for a low ISO and at the same time go for a long exposure. That means that if you've got moving cars or moving people, there's a fair chance that they won't necessarily come out on your image. Today it's a very bright day, so having the pinhole at the front to take the photographs is a great advantage from that point of view, because we're currently running at 3 seconds. Let's just improve that a tad more and go for 4 seconds. And here we are. We have a nice image of the car parked, and it's all been rendered very successfully. So that's it. I'll just rattle the thing around so you can still see. There's the lens cap with a hole in the front of it, and as you saw on the image, we were taking photographs. Now if we watch these individuals as they're moving in front of the picture there, particularly that gentleman, if I take the photograph now, he's gone right across the photograph and he doesn't appear at all. So that proves the point. It's nice that we had a happy little accident like that. Thank you very much.